Right, before we get into this one, welcome back to the channel. We upload new videos daily covering the internet's wildest theories, strangest moments, and the clips everybody's arguing about right now. If you enjoy real reactions, honest thoughts, and deep dives into some seriously weird content, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn notifications on so you don't miss the next upload. And most importantly, I want you in the comments. Don't just watch the video and disappear. Tell me what you actually think. Is this guy onto something completely insane or somewhere in between? I read the comments and some of the best conversations happened down there. All right, let's get into it.
I don't know if he's a CCP agent or not. You know, he's very entertaining and he's very smart, and we paid attention to what he's been saying for a long time. But
yeah, I like him.
Yeah, you got. I like him too on the surface. You do have to take what he says with a grain of salt. Ooh. I mentioned we're going to get into the Epstein baby thing, which I also do want to say on that. If it starts getting to some potential, children that he may have fathered and everything, this is really, really important. I understand everyone out there, we in the public are like investigating this case and all that, but it should go without saying, it needs to be said, no kid is guilty of the sins of their father. No kid should have to answer for the sins of their father. Identities need to be protected. If stuff like that somehow becomes available, it's really important that people aren't tweeting that out or discussing that or anything. That's obviously completely unfair to an innocent kid. So, and that's if that ends up being the case. But I do want to say that we are going to discuss, though, Zorro Ranch today, which certainly would be ground zero. You got to be careful saying that around Jeffrey Epstein. But it would be the ground zero, so to speak, of potential baby making and things that are far more sinister than just that, for sure. We're going to get into a Bill Gates story that my man Sayer G has been looking into. If you have not seen Sayer's work on Twitter investigating the case, it's unbelievable, man. I mean, he's putting together on his Substack the whole, these basically like Sherlock Holmes case studies laid out with evidence, and then he even shortens it for you in threads on Twitter. I just got off the phone with him. He's going to be coming on the show next month, so we'll have a lot to discuss there. But he reported on one that Deef and I were just like a little mind blown on at the implications of it. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into Jared Kushner as well today. That's got to be done. Jared Kushner keeps coming up in so many different angles. And who was saying the other day, someone said it really carefully. Fuck, who was it?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Can you type in Jared Kushner, new Epstein? Someone said that, and I want to clarify that. Someone was saying, Deep's going to find who it was, that in a lot of ways there's patterns of Jared Kushner that look like Epstein. However, that doesn't, they're not suggesting he's a sex trafficker or anything like that. They're suggesting from like a fixer kind of standpoint, which, isn't good, but
it wasn't.
Oh, was it Professor Jiang?
Was it Professor Jiang who said it?
This shit's either propaganda or the best content I've ever seen in my life. I have ADHD, probably like a lot of you guys, and I cannot really sit through anything. But when I watched this 6-part series from this Chinese guy that moved to Canada in Western civilization and started documenting secret history, breaking it down to before we even had like religion, before we had individuality, before we had the concept of money, and he brings it all the way back, and then he discusses the birth of evil and why evil. And guys, this was like a big sign for me that I was seeing patterns before this, then watching, this 6-part series, and then what we recently have seen in the news and the media the last week. It's like, oh my God, it makes sense. I see it. I see how the world works, how the evil people find inner divine truth through committing evil, and why they believe that they're getting closer to God. Just tell me in the comments if you've seen Professor Jiang Secret History on YouTube, the 6-part series. Is it propaganda or is it legit?
All of the lectures, like fake lectures that he does, is how he teaches Chinese students English, because that's insane. Imagine learning English in high school in China through Professor Jiang's lectures. It's the most insane way to learn English.
Let me put this way. I like Professor Jiang, but I don't like game theory. Okay, that should tell me a lot about it. So I don't listen to Professor Jiang a lot, although I like him because he talk about game theories too much. Why I don't like game theory? It's an economic theory. There's nothing wrong about that theory, but it's not science. It's dismal science. The way that people talk about it as if it is science, you can use it to explain something, okay? And with all the other theory, okay, there's maybe 100 competing theory can all explain something. Game theory is one of them, but picking it out and talk as if it's a science, that is wrong. No matter who talk about it. Professor Jiang, I like him, but I would turn off when anybody talk about game theory as if it's science. Professor Jiang I never heard him lie, okay? He will tell you what he's thinking. You can disagree, but he's not lying to you. And that makes him somebody we have to like.
We're going to get into Jared Kushner as well today. That's got to be done. Jared Kushner keeps coming up in so many different angles. And who was saying the other day, someone said it really carefully. Fuck, who was it?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Can you type in Jared Kushner, new Epstein? Someone said that, and I want to clarify that. Someone was saying, Deep's going to find who it was, that in a lot of ways there's patterns of Jared Kushner that look like Epstein. However, that doesn't, they're not suggesting he's a sex trafficker or anything like that. They're suggesting from like a fixer kind of standpoint, which, you know, isn't good, but
It wasn't.
Oh, was it Professor Jiang?
Was it Professor Jiang who said it?
I think it was. But I also have to put an asterisk on that. As entertaining as Professor Jiang is, Deef and I have been looking at this guy for like a year. I don't know if he's a CCP agent or not. You know.
What role do you think Donald Trump plays in this?
I don't align with Tucker. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I will have to say I commend him for speaking up and speaking out on this atrocious war. Tucker interviewed Professor Jiang Jiquin. He's Yale educated, and he's made some predictions about Trump and this administration that has come true. Let's have him answer Tucker's question.
That's a really hard question to answer. So let's look at different possibilities, okay? The first possibility is that he's been employed as an actor, and he's just following a script, but he doesn't really know where this movie is going. He's just doing his part. But he's manipulated behind the scenes.
Okay, I can definitely see that because he's got so many advisors around him.
Another possibility is that he himself has a messianic calling. God has asked him to serve. There's a call to serve, and he has to fulfill a mission. But what this mission is, okay? What this mission is, whether it's to save Israel, whether it's to save America, whether it's a part of a grander scheme. And the third possibility is that this is all Israel's doing. Netanyahu is the one who's forced him into this sort of situation because the Israelis attacked first.
I thought for sure this answer was the one until he shared this last one.
Another fourth possibility is they have co-opted him. Like there's blackmail on him. There's and he has absolutely no choice but to do what he says because he's compromised in a certain way, and maybe his family is under threat. So all four are possibilities, and quite honestly, I have no idea.
Did you notice that his voice started to tremble? So answer number 3 and number 4 go hand in hand, and they didn't blackmail his family, they blackmailed him. Did you guys come up with the same answers as Professor Jiang, or do you have your own theory?
This guy, Professor Yang, holy cow, this information should not even be allowed on the internet. I did happen to make a video about this guy a couple weeks ago, and then I happened to make this video, and it just so happens to be that his thesis for the rest of the class is somehow engineering perception.
All I'm saying is this, okay? In reality, literally everything is vibrations, all right? How these vibrations work, right? No one knows, but it's all just vibrational. But what we know is we are participants in a universe. So if we all believe God exists, guess what? God exists. We all believe sin exists, sin exists. Okay? That's why this war is not over resources. It's over perception. Do you understand? This is a war of perception. If I can get everyone in the world to believe that God is dead and Satan is a true God, I win. Okay? And how do I do that? Well, I can do that by shooting rockets up into space, by putting man on the moon and on Mars. Okay? Why? Because now I've destroyed the concept of heaven. Before, we've understood that the moon, the Mars were beyond us because they are heavenly, they're spiritual. But once I put man on the moon and on Mars and go beyond, I've proven heaven doesn't exist. I've destroyed God. I can also fake an alien invasion and pretend these aliens are Satan, okay? All science, you don't know this, but all science, it's not about discovering reality. It's about reinventing reality in a way that serves power. That's what science really is.
This was posted 3 days ago. My video I posted 10 days ago. I brought tech into it, AI, how you can actually like engineer perception. And a lot of people say like that's already what's happening to us. He said we're gonna be focusing on this for the rest of the semester. Perception. Perception equals power.
You know, he made the prediction on, what was it, July of 2024. He said President Trump's going to win, they're going to go to war to Iran, and they're going to lose. That's the prediction that he made. And then Sagar and them had him on the podcast. When they had him on the podcast, I messaged, what is their podcast called? They actually do a very good job.
Breaking Points?
I messaged Breaking Points immediately, and I said, great conversation. The world needs to hear this conversation. Matter of fact, let me tell you, when I DM'd Breaking Points and told them, great job interviewing this Jiang guy. Because guess what we need in America? We need different points.
Yep.
My message to him, Vinny, can you tell them when this message was sent? What's the date on that?
Wednesday, March 4th.
March 4th. And what did I say in the text to them?
Great work with the recent interview.
Yeah, and that was the interview with Jiang. Okay. So then we invite to have a conversation with him. He's on a conversation with another guy who, you know, he's been mouthing off a lot lately, and he's doing his own thing. You know, we had a conversation with him. I don't want to talk about the individual's name. And all of a sudden he's like, well, the reason, because I thought this was going to be a hit piece. That's why I didn't want to go on PBD podcast. They were trying to do hit piece. Having a conversation with you.
That's what this guy Jiang said?
That's what the guy said on camera. He says, yeah, what was the word he used, Rob? I think they were trying to set, it was a setup. It was a setup.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, I want to hear your thoughts and your angles on where you came with this conclusion. And then the person he probably least worried about, you know, taking a shot at him, Mehdi Hassan. Kudos to Mehdi Hassan on this interview. Good for you, Mehdi. Play this clip, Rob. Go for it.
English lit graduate, and you're not a professor. I know it's your YouTube moniker, but you're a high school teacher. You're not actually a professor.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not a professor.
You're
I'm
not
not
a
a professor, but I never said I was a professor. It's the internet who called me professor.
Hold on.
Hi, YouTube. This is Professor Jiang. Hi, YouTube. This is Professor Jiang. Professor Jiang here. Professor Jiang here. Professor Jiang here. Professor Jiang here.
You do call yourself Professor Jiang, and you're not a professor.
Look. There's a guy on the internet who calls himself the God.
I'm good friends with a radio host called Charlemagne the God, but no one actually thinks he's a god. People actually think you're a professor.
Professor Jiang here.
So this is the part when you come out and you represent yourself of somebody who you're not. The market's eventually going to expose you. And you're going to get out. And by the way, you know what else Mehdi asked me? So a lot of people are thinking you're with China. And you're maybe, somebody that is actually, doing this to kind of, hurt America because your motives are more supporting for the Chinese regime and all this other stuff. And that also came up. And he said, that's a very fair criticism. Guy's a very good communicator. You got to give him credit.
Yeah, for sure.
It is possible that I'm a useful idiot. And I suspect that there are many entities around the world who would like to amplify my message. Surely you understand why a lot of people think at best you're trafficking in pretty anti-Semitic tropes, and at worst you're a card-carrying anti-Semite when they see that stuff. Mehdi said this. Mehdi said this.
Spoken from a pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah. So anyways, when you hear this, Vinny, how do you process this? Tom, I'll come to you. How do you process this from a guy who actually was a professor at
oh my God,
adjunct professor. Tom was an adjunct professor at Biola and Pepperdine. Okay. How do you process that? By the way, is it really a big deal if somebody calls himself a professor and they're not?
The way he was representing it, I think it is, because it gives it gives yourself some gravitas. And as an adjunct, I never let them call me doctor. Doctor is a PhD, doctorate. And so I always had them call me Tom because these were MBA students.
Oh, wait, you like being called BizDoc?
He's a doctor. He called me BizDoc,
but he's not a doctor.
But
he's not a doctor.
I never said PhD.
But you never say professor. Ellsworth. Can we call you Professor Ellsworth?
You can call me whatever you want to call me.
Yeah, but would that be legal term? We could call you Professor Ellsworth?
I would prefer not, because I've got great respect for people that go and get a PhD.
All right. So, guys, don't connect them and say, Professor Ellsworth, I got a question for you. But if you want to take a risk and connect them and say, Dr. Ellsworth or Professor Ellsworth, he may respond back to you. Go ahead, Tom.
I may. So 94.7% of the time, everybody gets an answer.
That's
I'm
right.
correct. So I think this guy was holding himself out with Professor to create gravitas, and he's made these predictions. He was correct, and he kind of messed it up. Why did you do that? Why did you leave the door open? I don't think you should have left the door open like that. He says, "Hi, this is Jiang. Some people may call me Professor Jiang. I'm a high school teacher, and here's what I think about the future." That's all you have to say. How come can you just not say that? Because you leave the door open, and the door's open.
I concur with Professor E. But the one thing is, I was in the gym playing basketball and I sprained my ankle. And Tom, remember, it was me and Adam, and Tom ran up and he was like, "Is it your EBITDA?" I'm like, "That's not even a part."
But then
of
he
the
tried to
body."
give your ankle mouth to mouth.
Yeah,
That's
which
weird.
was very, very weird. And he told me to take my pants off.
Honestly, I still don't even know what to think after watching that. Some of these ideas sound completely insane, but at the same time, there's just enough truth mixed in there to make you stop and question things for a second. But now I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Professor Jiang is onto something deeper that most people are ignoring? Or is the internet just falling into another rabbit hole again? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Seriously, I read them all, and some of the best discussions happen after the video ends. And if you enjoyed this kind of reaction content, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn notifications on, because we upload new videos daily covering the strangest clips, wildest theories, and most controversial conversations happening online right now. All right, I'll catch you in the next one.